amazing Australians and the story of their lives. You're tuned to Lots to Chat About with Rosemary Peterswald.
Hello and welcome, listeners. Today my guest is Richard Cavill. Richard is part of the renowned Gold Coast Cavill family. He now runs the famous Cavill Steakhouse and other businesses. He's the great-grandson of James Freeman Cavill, an early pioneer of today's Gold Coast. Jim Cavill opened in 1925 a 16-bedroom hotel on land he'd purchased at the corner of Ferry Road, later to become Cavill Avenue and the Pacific Highway, in a little sleepy backwater then known as Elston. Being close to a fine surfing beach, he called it the Surfers Paradise Hotel. In 1928, when a life-saving club was formed nearby, it wasn't called the Elston Club, but rather the Surfers Paradise Surf Life-Saving Club, and Jim Cavill was its patron. And of course, the rest is history. Surfers Paradise becoming one of the major tourist destinations in Australia and famous all around the world. And Jim Cavill known as the father of Surfers Paradise. But it's not him we're talking to today, it's his grandson, Richard. So welcome, Richard.
Hey, Rosemary, how are you?
Very well, thank you. It's an incredible story, isn't it? To think that, back in 1925, there was this sleepy little place called Elston. Imagine if Jim came back now and saw what it was.
Yes, very much so. It has a lot of people very much interested in the story and the history, so it's good to talk about it.
It is incredible, and as I've said before, Richard now runs the Cavill Steakhouse, which is actually in Runaway Bay. But if you're going to Cavill's, which I might add is a fabulous restaurant with great steaks and food, you walk up a staircase which is full of the Cavill family history, isn't it? It's an amazing staircase. So did you compile all that history, Richard?
Yes, we've compiled it over the years, over 30 years. So when we did the restaurant, we needed something for the stairwell because it was just sort of red velvet paper, and a friend of mine, came up with the idea of putting all the history on there. So that's what we did. We compiled it all and designed it into a wallpaper type setup. So, and then when we got to the very, very top level, we ran out of photos, so we decided to put all our boats up there.
Oh, right. Yes, but they're fabulous too.
Yeah, they look good.
You can spend quite a bit of time before you actually even get into the restaurant, just perusing all the family history. He must have been a huge character. Was he alive when you were born, or if so, you would have only been very little, weren't you?
Yes, no, I'd never met him personally, no. But he was a very strong-willed man, and yes, direct, but very passionate too. And,
of course, in 1933, I think it was, Jim and a local activist had the town of Elston officially changed to Surfers Paradise. And then, of course, the Surfers Paradise Hotel went on to be incredibly famous, but sadly in 1936 it burnt down, didn't it?
Did. They never found out who did it either.
Right.
So they think, and they still think to this day, that it may have been one of his enemies that did it, but nothing could be proved. But Jim was one of those men that it was like water off a duck's back. He just got back down and rebuilt the hotel bigger and better.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
moved on.
It certainly was, because I never came up in the 1960s, but my husband did from Duntroon. A group of the cadets used to come up, and it was a great story about all the fun they had in the Surfers Paradise beer garden.
Correct.
So what is actually there now?
Oh, it's just a big shopping centre now, really.
Oh, what a pity. Yes.
But the Surf Lifesaving Club is still there.
Right.
So that's always interesting. And you walk in and you've got more history there, and Jim as the patron there.
Yeah.
Stands tall and proud, above the stairs. So, it's still a little bit of history left there.
Right. Sadly, as you say, it has gone. But that is the story of Surfers Paradise and of the Gold Coast, which actually brings me to Cavill Steakhouse, because originally that started off as something else, didn't it? And in a different spot in Labrador, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so my father had a very successful hotel in Brisbane called the Breakfast Creek Hotel, where we all grew up. And he went off to open Tangalooma Resort back in the very early 60s. And that put me in boarding school at TSS, which got me down to the Gold Coast, where basically my history started in the 1970. So that's where I grew to learn about the Gold Coast and be involved with the Gold Coast and all the sport and everything that goes on down there. But The Breakfast Creek Hotel was very, very popular. It had a beer garden out the back, which was transformed from what Jim did down in Surfers Paradise. And he tried Mexican food to start with, and he couldn't get it. So in the end, he had a friend in the steak business. So they started the steak business, and it was so successful. I wanted to try and do the same down on the Gold Coast and integrate with the history and everything like that. So we tried very hard to find somewhere in Surfers Paradise to do it, but in the end, we couldn't find anywhere that suited us. So we went to Labrador, which is round where all the locals live.
Right.
And we felt as though locals was the community or the type of people we wanted. So we were very happy there. The only thing was it was a restaurant, it wasn't a hotel. So I was silly enough to think that the restaurant industry would be easier than the hotel industry.
Oh.
But I got a rude shock about that one. But it's all been fun so far. And, that's how Cav started. We started down there with a beer garden, with a display counter, which you came up and choose your own steak, which everyone liked.
Wonderful.
And that was the concept that moved on from there over the years.
But then, of course, sadly now, that particular site has been, well, I don't think it has been redeveloped yet, has it? But it was looked to be redeveloped, and you moved to Runaway Bay, which you've got a terrific site there too.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that came by accident because we sold the development to a gentleman who worked with us, designing us to put the restaurant back there once he did the development. But when COVID came along, that stopped that. So that stopped it for a couple of years. And then now with all the builders and prices of everything, it's still not viable to build the development.
Right.
So we moved down to Runaway Bay, and he still hasn't got the development going. So I think he's got the site on the market now.
Right.
Yeah, but we were meant to go back there.
Now tell me, did you ever find your cow? The one that got stolen?
Yes, we always found them, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, because the one I read that somebody stole it, and I didn't realise that. I know you've got a cow up there where at Cavill's in Runaway Bay, but I wasn't sure whether it was the same cow.
I don't know. It's not the same cow, but you do your research, don't you? Yeah, they got stolen about 4 times actually, and went to all different places.
Yes.
But we had the public on our side.
Oh, I bet you did.
So the public are ringing up, seeing them, and reporting it to police, and reporting it to us where they were. So
right.
Yeah, so we always found them.
But how did you get them back? I mean, you didn't find them in a paddock somewhere or whatever.
Well, one particular time we found the one over on Stradbroke Island. It was buried.
Yes.
And it just had the horns coming out of the sand.
Oh, you're
But
joking.
again, a customer or a person saw them doing it and reported it. So we went over to Stradbroke and
How did they get it there?
Oh, on a dinghy.
Oh, God.
And then we dug it all up and washed it down and put it back in the paddock again. She was fine.
And there she sits proudly.
There she is, yeah.
So tell me just a little bit more about Brecky Creek, because that's obviously, as you say, where you learnt the trade. And I think what I read is also, and somebody told me, is the surf is a love of yours. So that was one of the reasons you decided to come down to Surfers Paradise and whatever. But it must have been a fascinating time working in the Brecky Creek Hotel at that stage.
It was. It was a very big learning curve. And Dad was the instigator of the drive-in bottle shop. So he was the very first person in Queensland to put in a drive-in bottle shop. So that was interesting times, seeing how that all worked and teaching the people how to drive through and get payments and things like that. So we learned a lot from that. And then we had the public bar, which we had the Forex wooden keg on the bar, which was very, very well known. And that pub was filled by the wharfies and all the politicians and things like that. So that was always a very, very interesting pub to go to. They just never went to work, those wharfies.
Oh, really?
It was an amazing time.
They need a lot of hydration when you're working on
They must
wharf.
have gone early in the morning and finished by 10 because they were lining up at the door at 10 to come in.
Oh, really?
And they'd spend all day there and then you wouldn't see them again. And then
They might have been on night shift.
Might have been, yeah. But yeah, no, it was interesting times.
And so who owns it now, or who runs it now?
It was.
And is it the same, or?
It was owned by Castlemaine, but it got taken over by a conglomerate of.
Oh, right.
Of someone who owns a heap of hotels. Yeah.
Yes.
But we sold out to Bondi when when he came along, and
Oh, right.
he bought Castlemaine Perkins.
Yes.
So
Right. It's very, very popular, isn't it?
It is.
Even to this
it
day.
is, absolutely.
And it was your father, of course, who ran it, and you worked for him. And he was an incredible boatman, wasn't he?
He was.
I think at one stage you were the custodian of one of his boats, Rapid. So we're going to have a little chat about some of those boats as we go on, if that's okay.
Sure.
But tell me, you own a boat at the moment. Now you were telling me. What have you actually got?
This one is a Millcraft. It's a 47-footer, built in the 70s, but a lovely old boat. So we've been bringing the family up with that. Rapid, we had Rapid for a lot of years, but the kids got too big for her, so we sold it to a very, very close friend.
Right.
We try and keep all the boats that Dad restored. We try and keep them all in the family. So each member of family has got one.
Oh, how lovely. Yes.
Yeah, so, and then if we do sell them outside the family, it's to people we know, and they're under strict instructions that they have to be offered back to the family before they sell on. So, yeah, it's a pretty good thing going at the moment.
Absolutely. Actually, one of my previous guests was Andrew Harper.
Sure.
And, of course, he owns Bally High. And I always loved the story. I've got a copy of his wonderful book, I'm sure you have too, called Classic Moreton Bay Cruises. And Andrew says there, and he said to us on air as well, that Bally High, which I think is the most beautiful, beautiful boat, was anchored opposite where he lived, wasn't it? And he used to eye her out at the kitchen window. And
he did.
Eventually he coveted it, and he got it.
He did.
And did the most wonderful job in restoration as he did. And for many years, I think you sailed up as far as Lizard Island in Bally High, didn't you?
Yeah,
When
absolutely.
you were,
Yeah, so she was built for the movie South Pacific 2, I believe.
Yes.
So she was the mothership that the actresses, Lindsay Mee used to go out with the girl who was the lead on that movie.
Right.
So he built her this boat, Bally High. So when they went over to Fiji to film the movie, she could stay on board and they could do their entertaining on board.
Oh, okay.
So that's how she came about. But yes, she was. Lindsay got a little bit old, but didn't want to lose the boat.
Right.
And she was across the canal, and Dad built a house at Runaway Bay which had a porthole in it.
Yes.
And when Dad stood at the bar, he used to be able to see directly through the porthole straight onto Bally High, and that stared at him for years.
Oh.
So he finally got it, and she was fairly run down, but he restored it completely, yeah.
So what year was that, or how old were you when he got Bally High? Approximately.
Approximately late 70s, early 80s, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she was in a pretty bad shape when he bought her, or because I've seen, well, actually I haven't been on board, but I've seen the most wonderful photos of her now, and she looks really beautiful.
She looks the best she's looked for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah, now at the moment. But being a Norman Wright boat, it had fantastic bones, so everything was right about the boat. It just needed love and care and attention and updating of systems and things like that. So,
right.
Yeah, all the timber work needed to be redone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yes. So.
Look, well, she seems to be in very good hands at the moment and looks absolutely beautiful. But Richard, now tell me more about Tangalooma, because your father, obviously, as you say, he set up the resort there, but he also put in the airstrip, and then he provided the ferry too, because as he said, you can't just build a resort and expect people to get there. They've got to get there somehow, so an airstrip and a ferry were compulsory. So tell me a little bit more about how he sort of saw the potential there. And
it was a whaling station, as you know, and then it got closed down by the government, obviously, for reasons that everybody knows about. And then it laid idle, and he just saw a potential of a resort. And with a couple of friends, they put everything together, and all the staff quarters from the whaling station, he converted those staff quarters into lovely units.
Oh, right.
For the guests, and then the main kitchen he turned into a pool area, a bar area, and a sort of a dining room area. So that became the resort, and that's how it started. And so it went on from there. It was an absolutely beautiful place. We were such sport kids. We used to go to school Monday to Friday, and we used to have Saturday, Sunday at Tangalooma.
Oh, how lovely.
For a number of years before he sent me to Southport.
Oh, Fair enough. To become a gentleman,
Yes.
I suppose.
I must have been a bit too much for him, I think.
Oh, right. But he sank the wrecks, didn't he? Or
No.
arranged to have the wrecks sunk there, no?
Yeah, I think he did.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, he certainly had something to do with it, mainly
Yes.
the positioning, I think. But it was very much needed because it gets rough over there.
I know. I've been at anchor there,
Have
and
you?
yes, a few times.
Yes, well.
And it's great to have the protection. But I haven't actually been ashore at the resort. But I've certainly read it and heard and spoken to people that have been there.
Yeah.
And it's terrific. Yeah, really good.
But the big thing I remember about Tangalooma, and so does the rest of the family, is all those dolphins, like they do the dolphin feeding now.
Yes.
They were there when we were there. So it's the same family now that was there then.
Oh,
And
really?
But we never used to feed them. We used to play with them. We used to swim with them. And, it was just the most beautiful experience, swimming, playing with dolphins.
Oh, how beautiful.
So now it's still going on today, that the same families of dolphins are still there.
Oh,
Well,
how-
we presume they
yes,
are.
because they live for a long time.
They do,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
So, and they have lots of babies. And when we were over there a couple of months ago, there was babies everywhere. So it's really good to see them still
how
there.
lovely. What about sharks?
There's a few sharks there.
Yes.
Yes.
Even in the Mediterranean, where I used to swim off the back of the boat for, I think I'd be a bit wary of doing that now.
Yeah.
But you're listening to Lots to Chat About. I'm Rosemary Peterswald, and my guest today is Richard Cavill of the renowned Cavill family and proprietor of Cavill Steakhouse in Runaway Bay. It wasn't just Tangalooma, which your father set up as well. He also came up, didn't he, with the idea of where to put the yacht club at Manly, and was a great instigator in that. In actual fact, there's the Cavill building there now, isn't there?
Yeah, they named a building after him, which was very good.
Yes.
Very, very nice.
Yeah.
Very decent. But yeah, he designed the yacht club with the oyster roof.
Right.
That was his design. And he was Commodore of the yacht club then.
Right.
So he started that
Yes.
and built the roof and got the yacht club going.
Right.
And then a period of years later, he found the other one down at Canipa, and they built something there too and started that. So he's fairly instigated very much with the Royal Queensland Yacht Squadron, yeah.
Isn't there a beacon called after him at
Yes,
Canipa?
there is. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a actually lovely anchorage up there. Yes, so he certainly. Have you any idea how many boats he did up?
Yeah, we do have the figures because when he died, we produced all the boats. So we went back through the archives and found every boat that he had,
Right.
and we had it up on film. So.
Yes.
Or old pictures and things like that. So, yeah, there was 27 or something
Right.
incredible like that.
Yes.
But
That's
yeah.
extraordinary, isn't it? And I think he said once that a boat is only as good as the laughter that comes out of it. Is that
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though I think it was Ballyhigh or one of the other boats that he said that he did up, he said he could have actually built a new boat totally from scratch
I think-
rather than restoring it. But aren't we lucky that he did restore so many of them? So, Richard, now you're, I believe, a mutual friend of mine also tells me that you're a great fisherman.
Right.
And you have you actually got? I know you've got your milk-craft at the moment, but have you had specific sort of fishing boats as well and charters or
Yes, I built a game boat in early 1990 to fish out of Lizard Island, which we did for a lot of years and caught a lot of marlin and released a lot of marlin and had a lot of fun, a lot of bottom fishing.
Right.
Yeah, all up there was the main area. We were very spoilt because when we had Ballyhigh, we had to go there every year because he used to charter Ballyhigh to all the, the movie stars and things when they used to come out and fish.
Yes.
So the family got on Ballyhigh and drove it all the way to Cairns and then flew home. And then when Ballyhigh had to come home,
Right.
we'd fly up to Lizard Island and bring Ballyhigh home. So we fished all the way up and fished all the way back for many years.
Right.
So it doesn't get much better than that. So
I would imagine not. A friend of mine, Susie Edwards, her husband Bill, of course, Edwards, he ran many charters up there, and Susie regales us with the incredible stories of the film stars and wealthy Americans that would come in. And, of course, at that stage, they did catch the fish and kill them. I think now they actually put them back in the water. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, very rarely does one get killed, only by accident if it does happen. But Bill was very much instigatable about the whole Lizard Island and the marlin fishing season, and he was a great fisherman as well.
Right, yeah, he was, Bill, yes, absolutely, yes. Have you got any favourite fishing spots, I should say, around Moreton Bay or up the Broadwater or somewhere that, or are you keeping that to yourself?
Oh, well, there's a few little spots, but we prefer crabbing at the moment.
Oh,
we do
right.
a lot of crabbing, so there's lovely crabbing spots all over Moreton Bay, so we spend a lot of time doing that when we're up here holidaying.
Right, right. And have you got any really easy, simple recipes for crab, or do you just haul them in and eat them fresh?
Eat them fresh is what our favourite, yeah.
Oh, right.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. I must admit, we were somewhere, actually Fraser Island, I think it was, and my husband caught a whole lot of crabs, and I put them in a casserole in the oven on the boat, and suddenly I heard bang, crash, whack, and the oven had exploded, and all the crab had gone everywhere. So it was I wasn't very popular, I might add. I wasn't at all.
Oh, good learning curve.
Absolutely. So have you restored any boats yourself, or?
I've had a few boats. I've built a few boats. I built a boat for the Lizard Island season, charter season. So that was still to this day one of my very favourite boats, which a friend of mine owns who's living on board her in Sydney.
Right.
I built another boat in China, which was a whole different experience for me.
Yes.
But a very enjoyable one, the travel and...
Oh, actually, so you had it actually built in China?
That's right, yeah.
Yes, because I know Taiwan build a lot.
They do,
yes,
yeah.
Yes.
But this one was in China, so it was a bit scary to start with, but we had a guy that was helping us, it was bilingual with Chinese and Australian, so he was very, very helpful, and it was a great experience to do that.
Right.
So I really enjoyed doing that. I'd not actually like to do it again if I had the time.
And sorry, how big was that boat?
60 feet.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
60 feet, yeah.
And fiberglass?
Yes, it was fiberglass, yeah, but
Yeah.
all timber traditional
Right.
inside, so...
Yes.
Yeah, but maintenance free on the outside because of the fiberglass.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. We actually had a Formosan one which was built in Taiwan, and she looked like wood from the outside because she had all the rivets and whatever in it, but she was fiberglass as well. Yeah.
Makes it a bit easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there was quite a few boats there that I was put a lot of work into and restored.
And where are they now?
There's a couple. There's one in Manly and there's one in Sydney, and the other one is Sydney too, I think, yeah.
Right. And you tell me you're heading down to Tasmania for the Tasmanian Wooden Boat Show, which comes up in February, and it's a magnificent boat show. I was saying to Richard that my husband and I were part of the very first one that Andy Gamlin started back in the early 90s, but there was only very few boats there. Now, of course, it's absolutely, well, almost worldwide, isn't it?
It is,
Yes.
very much, yeah. I only went to the one last time, 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, for the first time.
Was that when Ballyhigh went?
Yes, that
Yes.
was Ballyhigh was there. So we had an absolute, we didn't think it could ever be that good, and it was just such a great time. We promised ourselves, my wife and I, that we'd bring the boat back, and
Right.
and then people said, you're bringing the boat back, you've got to go to Port Davey, and
Yes.
you've got to go to Strawn and all that sort of. So then we've sort of trying to make a big trip out of it. So that's the plan anyway.
I love sailing the Broadwater. I love sailing, Moreton Bay and further north in Queensland. But Tasmanian waters are very, very special. They're not quite as warm as up here, but I think you would absolutely adore down at Port Davey, which is the total wilderness down there that somebody said to me once, it's almost spiritual.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah, you get that feeling, don't you?
Yes. Yes, the mountains and the isolation and whatever. Unfortunately, I think there are cruise ships that are not quite going right in, but are sort of going around and very close to Port Davey there. So so you've sailed across Bass Strait a couple of times, or
only the once in a Sydney to Hobart. Yeah, only
well,
the
that can either be a mill pond or something.
Yes, no, it was no mill pond, I can tell you.
No, we've had a few that weren't. Well, they were very exciting, but probably a little bit too exciting. So, that's wonderful. So, how long do you think you'll spend down there in Tasmania?
However long our business allows us to, but probably at least a month or two anyway.
Oh, how lovely. Yes. No, you need that, as we were talking earlier on, because if you do go to Port Davey, for any sailors that are thinking of going down there, of course, you've got to watch the weather, because sometimes you cannot get out because the weather will just not allow you to do that. But Cavill Steakhouse, of course, is going really gangbusters at the moment, and it's terrific to see that. And you have many, I would imagine, of the same patrons that come back time and time again.
Yep, we do. We're very, very lucky. We've got a great set of regulars that come in sort of weekly, almost weekly. We have a great team of people that live across the road in all the towers there that constantly support us in anything we do, be it a function or a Melbourne Cup Day or a Christmas luncheon and things like that. So we're very, very lucky.
Well, it's vice versa, because I live in one of those towers, and it's wonderful to have Cavill's Steakhouse just across the road, where we can always guarantee a really good meal. Have you heard of it, Paul, at all?
I have not, but I'm planning to visit.
Oh, good. Yes, if you want a really good steak,
I love a good steak.
It's the place to go down there. But Richard, look, it's been an absolute pleasure. We are running out of time, sadly. It seems to go very, very quickly. But it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and to talk to you about your incredible family. Right. Now, I did read somewhere that your grandfather thought he was related to the swimmer at some stage, wasn't Frederick? Yes. And do you think was that true? Yes.
Very much so, yeah. They were all swimmers.
Yes.
Very much so, the swimmers. And a quick story about Fred was that they were all determined to swim the English Channel.
Yes.
And Fred hopped in with a kayak or a canoe beside him to swim across to the English Channel, and he got halfway across and he failed because of the weather and the tides and everything.
Yes.
So they came back and he got a bigger boat and reorganised to swim the channel again. And this time they swam across the channel and it got dark quite early. So the skipper of the big boat said, "We're going to have to stop overnight. We're going to have to pull you in. You're not going to be able to finish the race."
Right.
So they pulled him into the big boat and they went to bed, and they woke up the morning 20 metres off the beach.
Oh, how incredible.
Yes. That ruined him. I think he packed up and came to Australia after that.
Oh, dear. Poor fella.
Yeah.
Was he a professor?
Not sure about a professor, but Jim also swam over the English Channel as well.
Oh, right.
And they were instrumental in the Australian crawl, the freestyle.
Yes, actually, extraordinary. Well, a good place to end up in, surfer's paradise, with all that surf and water and whatever. Yeah. But Richard, once again, thank you so much for sparing us the time from your busy restaurant, because I know how time is so precious, for joining us here. And,
thank you, Rosemary.
Thank you, listeners.
Great friends and great chats. That was another Lots to Chat About with Rosemary Peterswald. Stay tuned next week for another amazing chat.